What's up, YouTube? This is Carl. Today, we're taking a break from the 52. The Falcon's back in the shop, and God, you know, I hate talking to this camera. I always go brain dead. I swear, I'm a much more fluent person, but today we're gonna do gaps, panel alignment, and get this thing finished up, ready to go to paint. So let me flip you around. Probably let the heater run its course and I'll show you what we got going on. Okay, I'm pretty sure this was together last time I was in here, and I have it stripped. Interior's out, dash is out. It got pre-wired for everything since everything needed to work. Motor's out. You can see I have some finish up stuff to do now that the motor's out. But we're gonna focus on gaps for now. We're gonna start at the door and work our way forward. The back, you can see I tucked that bumper in real nice. That one needs done, but everything needs gapped and set up perfect before that can be done. Otherwise, that's not gonna fit right. So with gaps, there's a couple things you need to look at. Take your time, get your panels adjusted as good as you can for your body line. You want your body lines to line up first and foremost, and then your tilt this way so that you line up best you can front and rear. Then you're gonna look at it this way. You can see we're good here. We're off a little bit here. We're off a little bit more right there. We're off more there. Tiny bit there. Tiny bit there. So most of that is going to be that this edge of the door needs bumped out. So we'll hammer this inside edge to flex this out just a tiny bit to get our panels flush. When we're doing that, we'll use, where's my spoon? Or my flapper. You can use a spoon or a slapper, sorry. Set that against there when you're hammering, and it'll move the panel evenly. You won't end up with sharp little points from smacking it with a hammer. So we'll start with that. We'll get these gaps just right. After that, we'll move on to these gaps. You can use a set of dividers. I don't use these anymore because, well, by the time you get that tilted in there, you have a shank here that can kind of let that roll and wander. So I built this little tool. This is 3/16. I like to set my gaps at 3/16. A lot of guys will do 1/8. That's fine. The only thing you need to watch is like this wraps up and around. So if you make that too tight, when the door opens, if it gets tighter here, with 1/8 inch, you can get some interference. So I generally stay at 3/16. So we'll just kind of look through here. Like we're really close right here. Not quite. 3/16. Tightens up. Tightens up even more. Little tight. Way off. Way off. Way off. So this guy has just a little hook on the front. So what I'll do is we'll get rid of this epoxy primer. We'll take a little dye chem and spray it so that when we scribe a line, it shows up good. We'll take this guy. So this, I built this guy because it rides flat there, and it'll put a nice edge. With the dye chem, that'll really show up. So we'll buzz around with this. We'll get ourselves a line scribed in. Next thing you're gonna have to decide is which side you're gonna take it from. So in my case, I'm too narrow. I'm gonna have to open it up. So I'll cut, open it up, re-weld it. This situation right here, doesn't matter. It can come off either side. If you do the door, you're basically just splitting the skin, welding it back together. Do it on this side, you're just putting a slit, welding it back together. Where you need to watch is like in the front. Some fenders, this will just turn and you'll have fasteners this way. Like the early Broncos are like that. So you really can't change the fender side, you have to change the door side. So that's just something that will change with your project. You just gotta do a little pre-planning. Don't go cutting before you do a little investigating. And yeah, here we go. So if you're looking for that show car gapped out perfect finish, this is where you're gonna spend your next 200 hours or however long making them all perfect. So I'm gonna get that ground down, get some die chem on there, and we'll get rolling. Okay, we're all scribed now. Barely see that line. It's like bright on the edge. I come down to here, you can see it's more aggressive. There's our line right there. So what this line is basically telling us is how much we need to cut this. So I got about an 1/8 inch there. So I'll probably use a cutoff wheel or a thin disc. If you search through brands, you can find different thicknesses of cutoff wheel. You can normally match those up pretty close. So like I'll use a thicker cutoff wheel for this through here, so that when I push that back in, I don't have much of a gap to weld. Up here, where it's just a tiny bit, instead of a cutoff wheel, I'll use, where are you? Are you in here? No? Crap. I'm gonna have to search for that, but I'll use a body saw from like here up. And that body saw blade is super thin because I don't need very much up here. And that way I can keep control of how much of a gap I'm gonna have to weld up. So I'm gonna split that now, and then we'll use the back side of our gapping tool. This is made out of 3/16, so this is exactly 3/16. So we'll get that split, push that in there, tack that up, and we'll just continue all the way down until that gap is perfect. Something else worth noting is when I pulled the primer off that, I used a wire wheel, and the reason for that is we're gonna be welding on this, so we wanna keep this steel as thick as we can. If we go through with like 36 grit, 80 grit, whatever, we're actually, by the time we get down to clean metal, we're actually taking a little bit of metal off. And with sheet metal, always try and leave as much as you can. So we'll end up finishing it with sandpaper. But just for getting it down to this for rough cutting and welding, I try and leave as much there as possible. So I'm gonna get this split and get it all tacked back together, and we'll come back. Okay, I started tacking them back together. You can see we kept this nice and tight. We're down to here now. So if I take my gapping tool, I can keep myself out of the way. We're a little loose, but not bad. We're better off to be a little bit loose. I can make it up in body filler. When we get to here though, see I'm all closed up, but now I don't fit. So if you look real close, when I pry that, it's moving that gap up there. So now we'll just relieve this a little bit more. We'll massage it with a hammer a little bit on this side. We want this just to drop in without prying too much. Otherwise, our gap won't end up straight. So be prepared for a delicate process. Like, take your time, make sure you get everything fitted, tapped over to where everything just kind of goes back together. Because if you go prying to fit your spacer in there, your gapping tool, whatever you're using, you might be throwing off your gap somewhere else. So just something to pay attention to when you're doing this. So I'll probably just take the body saw now and run right back up this, and I'll open it up the width of a blade. I'll tap that in, see if it fits. If not, I'll take another blade's worth out of there, and I'll just keep working this until we're just right, all the way top to bottom. Okay, we're all tacked up. You can see we look a ton better now. Where we just went carefully, we kept our gaps mostly under control all the way down so we don't have a ton of filling. Take our gauge. We knew we were a little loose up here. I might pop these just to tighten it up a little bit. But now, let's see. We are perfect. A little tight right there, but just one little spot. And honestly, a little sanding on the door, that'll probably be fine. Or I might take a body hammer and just kind of tap that a little bit. When it's just tacked, you'll be able to push it a little bit. So now I'll go through and I'll knock the tops of all these welds off. And then I'll grab the TIG, burn this in, dress it out, and that gap is done. So I'm gonna go ahead and finish that because you don't want to watch all that. And then we'll hit this bottom gap here where it's too wide. So on this one, I'll show you how to close them up. Okay, we're all welded out, dressed out. And that seems good now. So for my metric friends, we are right around 5 mil. Now it might look a little big, but you got to remember this still has to go to paint. So by the time you get a couple layers of primer, paint, clear, everything else, it's gonna close up a little bit. Probably finish 3.5 mil, just under 3/16, and it's gonna look just right. So that moves us to here now. And this is where it gets tricky with this one. So, let me set those down. You remember we went through this, and this is just very sloppy. So here's another piece of 3/16. And you can see just how far that's off. I mean, we're just over 3/8 of an inch here. And by the time we get to there, we're at like 1/4. So we could split this, which would be the easiest to split this, space it, put a small filler, close up the gap that way. The problem is it attaches to this body line. So I can't do that. So now our only option for this is to add it to the bottom of the door. If it wasn't such a big gap, we could just weld a bead right on the corner of that door and build that door down to close up that gap. But where this is extreme, I'm gonna pull this door off and I'll show you what I'm gonna have to do for that. But this also has another issue. Get my straight edge up here. If I hold this on the bottom of the door, man, I need a camera, man. You see this door has a slight curve to it, not very much, but when you get down here, this thing bulges a lot right here. So we'll do the door first to get this gap closed up, and that'll make this alignment better. And what we'll have to do with that is we'll split this in here where it's bulged and pull that back in. And that way we have good panel alignment up and down, and we take care of our gap all the way across the bottom. This car, I don't know why, maybe it's just a Falcon thing, but the bottom of both doors are really wide. And also, if you come back here, see how wide that is on the bottom of the trunk? Same thing there. So I'll have to do this all the way around this car, but let me get the door popped off. I'll take it over, stab it on the bench. I'll take my mics and mic that on both sides so I know exactly what I got to do, and we'll get that bottom piece welded on. All right, got the door up on the bench, got the edges all cleaned up. All we're gonna do now is we're gonna take some flat bar. This is 1/8 inch. We're gonna weld it to the bottom of the door. So we'll just be careful to keep it contoured to match the shape. This is 3/4. I'm just gonna get it all tacked on, one end clear to the other. I'm gonna have to do a piece. This is just, I have it laying around, so I'm gonna use it. But yeah, we'll get that tacked all the way along the bottom of the door. You can see when I mic that, that was 0.3860 here. And 0.2775 on this end. So I'll get that all tacked on. Then I'll take the mics, I'll measure out, I'll subtract 188, 3/16 from this. And I'll put a mark, subtract 188 from that, put a mark. I'll scribe a line on there with a straight edge, cut it, smooth it out, weld it in. And that's how we're gonna take care of that gap. So I'll probably leave it a little heavy so that when we rehang the door, I can throw my gapper in there and check it. If it's a little heavy, I'd rather have to sand or grind a little bit off the bottom than have it too big, because we don't want to do this twice. So now that I got this up here, I'm going to get this on, and you can kind of watch me go through the process and come back after it's all done. Okay, door's back on. Check something. Pretty close. Pretty close. And a little bit much right there. A little bit. But we're a little high, so I need to adjust this door a little better. And then up here, we're right at. So probably I'll fool with this door just a little bit more, and I'll bet that ends up being just right. So now, come here, there we go. If we look straight down on this, this is good. See that though. Come back here, and we're good there. So I'll just take the scribe, I'll run it down this door, get a line on that, so that I know about how much I need to take off. We'll open it back up, split that, squish that back together, and hopefully, after all that's done, this door is 2/3 of the way done. So, I'll scribe line, and then we'll kind of go over it here in just a second. All right, let's see, I didn't throw any die cam on this, but you can see that line just starts to show up right there. By the time we get to the middle, we got like a 1/4 inch. And then that line disappears about right there. So from there to there, we got to put a split in there, and we got to soak up a 1/4 inch to make this line up at the bottom of the door. So here we go. I'll probably just grab a thin disc, put a split down it. I'll probably throw a C-clamp on it, soak it up that 1/4 inch, scribe another line, cut it again. And we'll just kind of go from there and just keep working it. Door open, closed, yada, 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 until we get it right. Weld it up, and we'll shit, I don't know. This is way worse than most vehicles, so just so you know, this is a lot more than most of them. So I'm gonna get to it, and we'll get this done. Okay, you can see now, that is way, way better. Still got a little bit here poking out, but there you go. Just went through, cut a whole bunch out of there, and I'll just meticulously work it all in, open and close the door about 1,000 times, just making sure everything's right as we go. I'm not going to record it. I'll come back to you when it's done. We'll kind of wrap this up and send you on your way. So I'm gonna hurry and do this. We'll come back. I don't know if we even really need to talk about anything else, but I'll be back anyways. Okay, we're all welded up. I still got some cleanup to do in there. This ended up being galvanized, so I had to MIG weld it, and it was a bubbly, nasty mess. So I still got some cleanup to do up in that corner there. But that is going to be the end of this. You can see we're way better. We went from 3/8 of an inch down there, 1/4 inch up here. Now we're, that's just a shadow. But anyway, that's all nice. That's all nice, and we'll just continue on all the way around. I'll probably do the cowl gap on the hood, get it set, and then make the fenders fit from there, and then same thing. We'll hit that gap, and then the other side of the car, trunk, but that's how you do it. So for now, I'm gonna say goodbye. It's Carl, No Coast Fab. If this helped you, if you liked it, hit the subscribe button, little bell so you can see when new stuff pops up. And that's it. Peace.